Hello, class. This week for my discussion, I picked the female Revolutionary War figure, Molly Pitcher, and I'd like to share some of the information I learned. Molly Pitcher actually became a legend at the Battle of Monmouth, New Jersey on June 28th, 1778, and it was basically in the middle of the war. Soldiers used common slang for female camp followers and would call them Molly. So Molly was not, in fact, her real name, and we'll get to her real name shortly, but it was basically a slang term for the female camp followers. And it was generally accepted back in the 18th century for camp followers, to perform menial tasks and to help support the troop base. Many of the camp followers served as nurses, laundresses, water carriers, forgers, or cartridge makers. Although some were prostitutes, many of the followers were essential to wartime. So basically, during the battle, Molly Pitcher's husband, John Hayes, collapses, and she takes over the artillery unit. He was in charge of the artillery unit that was it was essential to their tactics, the Continental Army's tactics, and she basically took over the cannon. And according to two eyewitness accounts, Molly's heroics were recorded by Private Joseph Plum Martin, and he was a continental soldier. He was a private. His journal stated that at the Battle of Monmouth, Molly helped her husband work his artillery cannon when a British cannonball actually rolled between her legs, damaged her petticoat, and she did not hesitate. She didn't flinch. She continued the fight and supported the rest of her troops. The other account is from Dr. Albigenitz Waldo. He wrote to his wife describing the battle and the heroics of Molly, and basically repeated the same account as Private Plum Martin did. So it was after much debate on the origins and real name of Molly Pitcher. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of hearsay, but after a while, historians have verified, in fact, her real name. She hailed out of Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and like I said earlier, her husband was John Hayes. So her actual name was Mary Hayes Macaulay. The husband of Mary was John Hayes, and he manned the heavy cannons to the battlefield. Like I said previously, wives of the soldiers were allowed to accompany their husbands and perform tasks such as cooking and cleaning. The legacy of Mary was pretty profound. It had a deep impact on the Army. It really boosted morale, and it just her courage and her charisma shown on the battlefield when it was least expected really stayed with the Army. Mary stayed with her husband's cannon until dark at the Battle of Monmouth, and never stepping out of the fight. Her courage displayed was just a huge motivational factor for the home front, and she actually was self-congratulated by George Washington. Both Mary and her husband continued to fight until Britain's capitulation in 1883. And they're very humble. Showed a lot of humility. It didn't really need the praise, just were fighting for freedom in their country. Mary was one of the few women to fight in the war and was able to receive a pension and was formally recognized by George Washington, which was pretty unheard of for a female. And some of the questions from the article on Betsy Ross that I want to address here is, how did Molly Pitcher become famous? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory after what I've said and what I've read. You know, her heroic actions on the battlefield really proved her worth, and could have saved many lives that day, because you know, an unoperational cannon is a huge tactical flaw. What made Molly Pitcher different? As I said before, I would say her humility made her different. You know, not needing the recognition. Like, nobody knew what her real name was until later years. So it wasn't something that, you know, she needed as an ego boost. It was something that she wanted to do and felt obligated to do to serve her country. Has the reputation grown over the years? Yes, I would say very much so. Especially with, you know, women's rights movements and activism and that such. It's had a big impact, and kind of reliving that tradition that Molly had back in 1778. How important was it to have a famous female icon in a Revolutionary War? Well, I think, you know, she's not the only famous female icon, but she definitely is one of the bravest. And just to have her, you know, as a female, to go out in the line of duty and risk your own life to help out, you know, your fellow troops, and to help out the cause, just really shows a lot. You know, it just shows the strength and the courage of, you know, the colonists and the Continental Army at that time. You know, they're fighting for a cause, and you know, the British, they felt that they were intruding on their land, and they had to do something about it, and it was just very important to her. As I've read some of these articles, it was extremely important for her to take up arms when she saw her husband go down. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and have a great weekend.